Hey, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
Here, listen to another episode of Coast to Kings Radio. Today's episode is Inside King's Dominion, which pretty much means we're going to take you on a grand tour of this Cedar Fair Park in Dawswell, Virginia. Ever heard of Dawswell before?
No.
No? See,
well, actually, that's a lie, because I hadn't heard of King's Dominion.
Okay. Either way, we're going to discuss its history a little bit, do a grand tour around the park, discuss all the rides, all the good stuff. How about a little history lesson from Mr. Alexander?
King's Dominion opened May 3rd, 1975. The name is derived from the name of its sister park, Kings Island, and the nickname of the state of Virginia, Old Dominion. Originally operated by Family Leisure Centers, a partnership formed between Taft Broadcasting Company and Top Value Enterprises. So that's interesting.
All right.
Do you know how Kings Island got its name, though?
You tell me, history buff.
Because it's in Kings Mill, Ohio, and it is the relocation/reincarnation of
Coney
Island.
Boom.
In Cincinnati.
Back to King's Dominion. The original focus of the park was on Lion Country Safari, a giant safari, which actually didn't it have one of those suspended monorail
Yeah, suspended monorail. Kings Island did too.
Never know. I never thought it was a good idea to put a suspended monorail through an animal exhibit. You know, wild times.
I think it was suspended. Maybe it was a regular monorail.
And then from 1983 to 1992, the park was operated as part of the King's Entertainment Company. Notable additions during that time included Shockwave, Avalanche, which is still around as Reptilian, and Anaconda. Shockwave was a stand-up togo that's no longer around. Well, it's around somewhere else, Italy.
Yeah.
But
wait,
that's the wrong one.
Wonderland.
Where's that right now? Is this demolished period?
Yeah.
That's how
they couldn't find a buyer.
She did.
Yeah.
1993 to 2006 were the Paramount years. So during the Paramount Parks, notable additions in this year include Hurler, Outer Limits Flight of Fear, Kidsville and Scooby-Doo Coaster, Volcano de Blast Coaster, Hypersonic XLC, Ricochet, also known as Apple's Apple these days, Tomb Raider, Firefall, also gone, Drop Tower, Italian Drop Turbo Coaster, also known as Black Lot Stunt Coaster. I mean, half of the stuff ain't even around anymore, but it was a good times in those 13 years.
Was the Turbo Coaster.
And then since 2007, obviously Cedar Fair has operated the park since then. Notable addition since then has been Halloween Haunt. They actually added that seasonal event, which is pretty successful. Dominator, Intimidator 305, Windseeker, Twisted Timbers, and now Tumbili. A lot of rides. We'll discuss them all.
A lot of stuff. My first visit to King's Dominion was as they were transitioning into Cedar Fair. So it was like a little bit between Paramount, a little bit between Cedar Fair.
I will say that my favorite Cedar Fair parks are the Paramount parks.
Yeah.
California's Great America, Kings Island, King's Dominion, Carowinds, and Canada's Wonderland are in there too. There was a certain way that Paramount operated their parks and the way that they looked and the way they were shaped and landscaped.
They were always very polished.
And it's good. And especially, I think, for me, King's Dominion, Kings Island, and California's Great America are like the top three for me there.
Super sharp, yeah.
Yeah, really sharp.
All right. So
let's dive right into it.
We're taking our tour. We're starting
taking our grand tour.
International Street. Something I love about King's Dominion is they waste absolutely no fucking time. You enter the park, boom, Intamin looping starship, themed to a boat, an old boat, and it's been like that for a while. And even before then, immediately to your right, they had a scrambler at one point, right there on International Street too.
Oh really? I don't think I've seen that.
I kind of like that. That was years and years and years ago, but I actually discovered that on a park map. But that's something I really like about this park is that you come in and it is like instantly the last Intamin looping ship ride in the Western Hemisphere now is this one. And it's also like the little hood ornament to Dominator, which is also just like, boom, right there. Your front lawn, amazing roller coaster. Sort of a parking lot coaster, except they actually treated the ground for it with like grass and stuff, so it wouldn't look too parking lot-y. And then, of course, the Eiffel Tower at the end of International Street with the fountains and
so during our most recent visit, unfortunately, Eiffel Tower wasn't open. It was during our visit prior. It's actually one of my favorite attractions, despite it not being anything close to like the real Eiffel Tower and its look. It's kind of a lie. Like it's inspired by. The music is incredible, and there's nothing better than taking photographs with a nice camera from the Eiffel Tower or just enjoying the wind. So I was a little bummed that it was closed this visit. No reason why listed anywhere. I guess maintenance would be the excuse. I did miss it having it open. And then as far as Dominator goes, Is it the best floorless in the world? No, because I would still give it to Superman. La Torre de Acero at Parque Warner Madrid. But it's high up there. It has amazing pacing. Everything's just kind of such a large scale. It's still the longest in the world, despite not really doing all that much. But the high-speed turn after the first loop,
inversion, somehow it's the longest. It's easily my favorite in the country, although I really, really like Rougarou. It's hard for me to pick between the two of those. It's ironic because they're both really odd as far as the floorless coaster formula goes, because like typically they have a 0G roll. They've got, they follow like the Kumba format, more or less. That's actually what Superman in Spain does too. But these two, both of them are kind of odd. Dominator was running great. It's a fabulous ride. A great way to start your day. Although a lot of people feel that way, which is why that ride absolutely gets inundated with people at rope drop. It would actually beseech you to skip Dominator on your way in and go probably straight to Intimidator. But on our tour of King's Dominion, we're actually going to start, once now that we've reached the Eiffel Tower, we're going to continue counterclockwise. Yeah, we're going to go to Old Virginia first. This probably doesn't mean anything to you because I don't think people really go by parks anymore and think of the areas. But technically speaking, King's Dominion does have it separated in areas. King's Dominion is, they've really reinvested in the identities of their areas with Expedition
Jungle Explorer.
Jungle Explorer and Candy Apple Grove and Old Virginia. If you're wondering, it's the part of the park that is to the right of the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, it's Jungle Expedition.
It's the only part of the park that's right of the Eiffel Tower when you walk in, and it's the only part of the park that is a forest. Yeah, it's funny. Unlike Kings Island, it's not as circular, but even Kings Island's a little lopsided. Kings Dominion is very lopsided. Kings Dominion, everything is to the left. But yeah, let's start with Old Virginia. How do you pronounce that name? Shenandoah Lumber Company. Really, really cute log flume. Not very long, but super fun. And then they've got their Rapids ride, of course, too. And the obligatory Paramount era Extreme Skyflyer. And sorry, I didn't mean to poke you with the pen. That was not intentional. Your little face just now. What did I do? And then the Grizzly, which has received a lot of track work. And the first drop reprofile on the Grizzly is awesome. But now they need to fix the back half of the ride because it's great until 2/3 of the way in, and then it starts to really punish you for. So one thing I will say is that this is one of the cutest areas in the park because it's so forested. They got the little There's trees everywhere. They have the car ride. Grizzly is the same layout as California's Great America. No, it's not. It's crazier version. Great America's is the nerfed version. Yeah, that's so they have the Australia got too, the nerfed version. Ours is ours Wildebeest, or is Wildebeest also Wildebeest and Grizzly are so Wildebeest is kind of Wonderland, and then Grizzly here at King's Dominion. Yeah, King's Dominion and Canada's Wonderland are the good ones. The cool extra elements version of that layout. The Coney Island Wildcat. And the nice thing about this is that it's in the forest. First of all, it's been most of your track, like Alex just mentioned. So they made the first drop steeper, which was a big surprise. Yeah. Remember, we were like, oh my God, this is crazy. The drop took us, totally took our breaths away. It was very good. And they brought it all the way down to the ground. And the airtime on that thing is wild. I also remember we rode it in a rainy day in June a couple years ago, and it was flying. I was out of my seat on the seat divider. It still has that vibe. It's still flying. You're out of your seat the whole ride. Yeah. You wouldn't think much of it, especially not since the ride you have the access through the gift shop. Who even thinks about it? That's such a funny... such a weird vibe. But really, really good ride. And doesn't really have a line because it's not easy to get to, not easy to find, kind of hidden. Great rides on it recently. Really enjoyed it. They do need to fix the second half or the last third. The approach into the last turnaround is very... But everything else is so incredibly smooth. It's running great. Yeah. Yeah. It's a really nice... It's probably the nicest area of the park in my opinion just because the trees are so full. And there's just some really cute fixtures there. It feels very unspoiled in a way. How about the water rides? What do you think of those? I really liked the log flume a lot. I don't remember it well because I didn't ride it last time. You ride it, I guess. It's just very scenic. Most of it is buried into the ground. Unlike Kings Island's, which has a slightly elevated trough that kind of floats around. The Kings Dominions is you have a lift into a small drop that brings you back down to ground level, and you float right at at ground level until you take the second lift hill up into the major drop. But it's just so serene and elegant in its own way there. The Rapids ride, did we ride the Rapids ride?
We rode it the first time.
So we did ride it together in 2018. I remember it being good. I mean, it's
kind of hidden. Yeah. You know it's there unless it's looking for it.
It's kind of like the park feels a little bit like Kings Island in this regard, because you've got the Rapids ride and the log flume are sort of in the same basic location at both parks in relationship to each other. I'm trying to make sure that like I'm not remembering Kings Island's version of something when it's actually Kings Dominion's version that I'm trying to recall. But Kings Dominion stuff is a lot more like unspoiled. Now you've got like Mystic Timbers and stuff all around the Kings Island water ride complement, but the ones at Kings Dominion are a lot more secluded.
Right.
Like you can't even see the Rapids ride from Midway. You really have to know that it's there.
Yeah.
The log flume has great curb appeal. The Rapids ride,
it's funny because the two biggest water rides are both kind of hidden in the forest. Yeah,
totally hidden.
Next up, we have Candy Apple Grove, which was also relaunched. If you heard any sort of crazy noise, that was our cat jumping into the cat tree. Thanks, Bondo.
Top Thrill Dragster.
Yeah, Top Thrill Dragster 2. Top Thrill 2. Anyway, so Candy Apple Grove was relaunched, I think, in 2018 to kind of bring back the vibes of that old part of the park. Home to Windseeker, the Cedar Fair staple. I think it was operating on our first visit. It wasn't operating last visit.
The tower rides did not come to work for us.
They did not come to work. It wasn't
no
that
Eiffel
windy.
Tower, no Windseeker, no Drop Tower.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate. I mean, I like Windseekers, but I feel like I almost never see them open. Every time I see Cedar Point, it's not open. Kings Island, I've ridden that one a couple times. That's about it. Windseekers are a hard credit to get these days.
Mm-hmm. So what I love about Candy Apple Grove is it's actually a giant area made up of at least two areas. The original Candy Apple Grove was like the midway, the kind of Coney Island-esque midway between the Skyride station and Rebel Yell on one side and like the Singing Mushrooms on the opposite side. And the area that Twisted Timbers is in and Apple Zapple, which are now like the focal point of this area. Where originally, as far as I know, I don't think there was anything there before, but in 1994, it was the Wayne's World area of the park. So for a while, it was two separate areas, and now it's one big super area. This is a nice area with a lot of rides, a lot of things to do. Twisted Timbers is my least favorite RMC. I think it's also yours.
Wow, is that far down there? I mean, I don't hate it that much. I just don't love it.
Is there an RMC that you like less than that one? Maybe Storm Chaser, just because Kentucky Kingdom is so ugly. But
it's hard to say. I don't really think of RMCs much, like which one do I hate the most. Funny enough, you think I would, but I don't. So I don't really know where it ranks exactly. I haven't given it that much thought. I do remember liking it better this time than last time. I remember thinking, okay, these. I love the inverting drop. That's one of my favorite elements. Having that really smooth gliding turn in between the little airtime moments and the three big airtime hills.
Like when it started, we were like, okay, this is better than I remember. And then by the time it was over, I was
it starts gut-checking, but I have that feeling in a lot of RMCs. One thing we have to respect about this ride is that it is much longer than the original ride, which is really unique. RMCs are usually not longer than the originals. I think it's the only one, if not maybe Untamed, maybe longer than Robin Hood. But other than that, I think all the other ones are shorter than the originals. It was
certainly the first one to be.
It was the first for sure. It was a big marketing push
than the original ride.
I like its inversions. I really like the locker system they implemented. So now it's a locker mandatory ride. But the way it works, kind of like Philosophico's, it's a two-way locker system. So you show up, you put in like this little combination of like a color and like a picture or whatever. It's kind of like a game. Then you get a ride. It's a little locker for the ride. It's big enough for like your phone and keys and wallet. Like a bunch of small little lockers on this giant wall. And then you go through metal detector to get on, so they verify that you don't have anything on you. And then you just pick it up on the other side. I really liked that system. I kind of hope to see it a lot more Cedar Fair parks very soon. I wouldn't mind Knott's Berry Farm getting on that game because they do not do ride lockers, and I am a ride locker person. Yeah. I do get ride lockers. I do pay extra for them. Love to have my stuff not getting stolen and not at me if I can help it. So that was actually really beneficial. Overall, I didn't mind Twisted Timbers, but it's not that great of a ride for me.
Yeah, when it was over, I couldn't wait for it to be done. Like, the back half of it just gets worse and worse, and more gut checks and kidney pummeling. But some people were into that. It's fine. I really love this park's collection of coasters. Like Twisted Timbers is.
It definitely helps.
Just not for me.
It just definitely helps rounding out that park's lineup. There's lots to do, lots to see, and it is a nice aesthetic. They give Hurler such an upgrade. It's almost unrecognizable. And that makes the one at Carowinds seem very dated and very ugly.
Especially Cedar Fair. Like, when they did Twisted Timbers, people were surprised at the thematic prowess of that project. Like, they really went all out to give the ride an aesthetic. And it's well maintained, too. Like, it's been open 5 years. And the area around the ride, all of the thematic touches are still in great shape. So I want to give credit where credit is due. It's a really, attractive ride that seems to be well maintained. It has a great aesthetic. It was
also pretty good when we were there last time.
Right, it's just not for me. It is not my cup of tea. And Apple's Apple is cute, too. We didn't ride it this time, but it's, it's a large park mouse. Typical stuff. We rode, there was one side of Racer 75 was down, but we rode the other side. It was not busy. The park was not busy. Normally I would be annoyed because I like for my racing coasters to race.
It was running well though, because I remember in 2018 they had just retracted and I was like, okay, this is good. But I was very scared of, it being years later of it not running that well. So that was good. One thing I do have to say about that is that the entrance and exit situation is so weird. A lot of people are going up the exit thinking that's the entrance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's kind of wild about that ride. And there's absolutely no shortcut in that queue. You have to walk all the way around.
Basically, if you're trying to ride a wooden coaster at King's Dominion...
For sure, look for the entrance, and that's a clear entrance sign. Yeah. It's not very self-explanatory.
They make you work for it.
And I think it's kind of funny how those three wooden coasters all used to kind of touch each other.
Yeah.
They were all in this little half moon of wooden coasters. That was it, like a wall of wood.
That's the other thing. Twisted Timbers was a great candidate. Like, Hurler was a great candidate for an RMC remodel for a park that already had 3 superior wooden coasters. And Hurler was totally an unnecessary addition for that park, if you ask me. I think they only did it because they're like, ooh, wooden coasters. It's something that they were doing.
Having Hurler next to Grizzly makes no sense.
Yeah.
Grizzly's like the better version of Hurler.
And well, that's what I'm saying. I think they just did it because Busch Gardens wasn't doing wooden coasters. They're like, oh, we're doing something different. Like, this is cool. So it was the perfect choice for an RMC, even though I don't like the ride. It's like a perfect complement to the lineup. It's perfect in every way, except I personally don't enjoy it.
You don't love to see that. Drop Tower is also in Candy Apple Grove, and I love this drop tower here. It has those weird seats that are all like on this giant, almost like a bike wheel, and the seats are all pushed out very far.
I call it a ring drop,
and it's called that because it's much more aerodynamic, right? So it falls better, or it doesn't catch any wind. I remember being a really good drop tower when we rode in 2018. Unfortunately, it was closed this year. And I think it's big closed because the famous video on TikTok of the possum living on the ride. Girl, she ain't dropping that drop height every time.
I think they should retheme it to an apple falling from a tall tree. The apple.
No, that's too much for me.
Rotten apple.
I mean, give it a cute tree look, maybe.
Yeah.
You know how Great America?
Great America
gave it it's modern, more.
They painted it to look like
naturalistic
a tree. We love that. I think Drop Tower.
I think that would be a cute
candy
look
apple.
For that too.
The candy apple tree.
And in general, the area is pretty nice. You also have a couple more flat rides there. You got the Ferris wheel, and then you have Delirium, which is the pendulum ride that replaced Shockwave.
Yeah, a Mondial.
Yeah, it's actually quite a good ride though. I remember liking a ride on it. It's very Cedar Fair dressed up, so boat sails over concrete queue.
Primary colors, and also orange.
Exactly, but it does look good. Like, it looks clean. It's a nice addition to the area. Lots of flats here. If you're looking for a good flat ride collection, this whole Candy Apple Grove, if everything's operating, is honestly a good, nice selection of flat
when the
rides.
tower rides come to work, Kings Dominion has a pretty solid flat ride collection.
I wonder if we could spend it early in the season. That's why some of the stuff wasn't open, because
that early in the season.
Yeah, that's true. It was mid-June. The school's definitely out. But it was also, we got a cheap ticket. That week was the last week of cheap tickets.
Oh, I guess
and then everything went up.
I guess it could have been a staffing thing.
Yeah, I wonder if it was staffing. The colleges weren't done yet or whatever. And so all the European seasonal workers weren't there yet because it wasn't summer in Europe yet. I'm just thinking out loud.
Something like that.
It didn't seem like they were staffed that well.
Yeah. All right. And then we have Like, I have Backlot Stunt Coaster in its own little...
It isn't part of any land.
Well...
I looked it up. It's not part of Jungle Expedition, and it's not part of anything else.
They don't consider... What about Flight of Fear and Intimidator? Are they in Jungle Expedition too?
No, I guess in their special corner, literally.
Special...
Because they also don't have a land that they're part of. And they refuse to put them in Jungle Expedition.
Well...
But you can't put Backlot with Flight of Fear and Intimidator because Anaconda, which is the jungle energy, she right in the middle.
Is in the middle.
So anywho, Planet Snoopy's next though.
Okay.
In line. We're gonna have to go through Planet Snoopy.
We didn't even go to Planet Snoopy.
We've been there before. There's 2 major attractions there.
Planet Snoopy.
It isn't about our one visit. This is about the park in general. Let's talk about it.
It's true.
Inside Kings Dominion.
I love that the entrance to Planet Snoopy from Candy Apple Grove has that 90s King's Entertainment thing going on, like Paramount, like Nickelodeon. Remember that big steel-looking thing, marquee that's there?
Yeah.
The area that is so my childhood. It makes me nostalgic.
Yeah, kind of like a science museum.
It's hilarious that it's still there. But yeah, Planet Snoopy, it's, it is what it is. It's... The thing about the Planet Snoopy areas is I feel like it's sort of their way of saying, like, we don't have a cohesive theme for these rides. It's not like Camp Snoopy where everything is themed to, like, being in summer camp.
Right.
They're like, these rides are themed to all sorts of random shit that the Peanuts kids are using their imaginations or whatever. Where they're like stock car driving or flying an airplane. And, it works in its own way. But, like, Carowinds got their Camp Snoopy retheme, and then Michigan's Adventure got theirs. I hope Kings Dominion gets theirs, too.
Yeah, because the original Camp Snoopy at Knott's Bear Farm is... one of the best, if not the best,
so
kiddie
pretty.
areas in the U.S. It's so pretty. It's so nicely landscaped. They relaunched in 2014. Chef's Kiss. It was a beautiful place. I love Camp Snoopy there. And having Sarah Cyboyne as part of Camp Snoopy is honestly pretty good. It's a great family coaster.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the Knott's show, so I guess we'll go back. Woodstock Express, Scooby-Doo coaster that we mentioned earlier.
They have their obligatory trio of King's Entertainment kiddie coasters.
I will say I kind of like their kids' entertainment. I mean, the kids' Woody coasters. Yeah. They're good.
They're missing the Vekoma family invert, though.
Oh, God, it would have been such a good fit for that park.
This one and Great America are the two that didn't get the kiddie invert.
Flight of No Fear?
Yeah. and then you have Boo Blasters.
On Boo Hill. Which that is not actually a hill. It's a weird hill to die on where to locate it.
That's one of the most...
Because it's like right over by like the Picnic Grove and Dominator and that little walkway there.
Kings Dominion does have stuff in some weird places. Like, some parks feel very deliberate in their locations of things. But Kings Dominion always seems like they just kind of put stuff where, like there was no other choice and it had to go here. But I love that the Action Theater, the former Paramount Action Theater, immediately to the right of the Eiffel Tower in Old Virginia. Obviously, we talked about the Intamin Looping Starship attached to International Street. And you have Boo Blasters on Blue Hill, which is just like in the most like random corner. Like you really have to know that it's there.
And the biggest thing for me is there was a time where Dominator wasn't dominating that walkway there. Yeah. So like, how did you get there before? That must have been an awkward way to get over there.
What's funny is that Midway was always there. It just wasn't always open until they added Dominator and made it like a permanently open part of the infrastructure. But it used to just be an artery to connect the picnic pavilions directly to International Street so that you wouldn't have to go through Camp Snoopy or whatever Hanna-Barbera land or whatever the kiddie area was at the time. But I was looking at like these old pictures of Busch Gardens, of Kings Dominion, and that Midway was always there.
Interesting. It feels like such a like afterthought. I guess the reason Midway was always there is because the picnic pavilion for all the special events is at the end of that walkway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that was just a way for everyone to get to the picnic area instead of find their way through some kid area.
Exactly. But yeah, Planet Snoopy is kind of it's just there. It's really right in the center of everything. Which is funny because in Kings Island, it's kind of off to the side. It's its own little annex in a way. But at Kings Dominion, you are really orbiting Planet Snoopy.
That's funny.
By riding everything else around it.
No pun intended.
Yeah. And then you have Backlot Stunt Coaster.
So yeah, Backlot Stunt Coaster, part of course,
Backlot Stunt Corner.
3 builds, which were Canada's Wonderland, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, all part of the
I love these rides.
Italian Job. What's it called again? Italian Job
Stunt Coaster or Turbo Coaster.
Turbo Coaster is what it was.
Yeah.
Backlot Stunt Coaster is a cute name. I like all of them. I find them comfortable. I find them intense, funny enough. That first helix after you launch, a giant upward helix, super intense, really. And then, thematically very cute. Indoor portion. This one is running really well. And I was surprised by how fast it launches off the mid-course, where there is a launch located to go into the tunnel, and then you come out of the billboard. Yeah. And there was some crazy air on that. I was like, wow, I did not remember that being this good. Funny enough, the fire effects are working on the ride. You just can't see them when you're on the ride because they don't happen until the train launches away, which you only see off-ride. But overall, I really enjoyed this ride. And even I feel like maybe they need to touch up some of the theming a little bit, it's still one of those perfect family coasters, one of those like Paramount last hurrahs, because they added this like right before the parks were sold to Cedar Fair.
Yeah, this one was only Italian Job for 2 years.
Such a Cedar Fair ride. Like, I'm sorry, it was such a Paramount ride, such a like movie studio, movie themed IP rolled into it. It's a good ride. I have nothing else to say, but I enjoyed the ride.
It was so ahead of its time. Think of a family multi-launch coaster.
Yeah.
Is now, like, every park in the world wants a family multi-launch coaster. And Paramount Parks was building these things 20 years ago.
I feel like they're reliable, too, because I never see one down. It does use the old launch system, like Flight of Fear, but it's not like by any means a detractor or anything. It's definitely a little bit of an older style launch coaster, but
they really hold up.
Love that. And they're so smooth.
Yeah.
They're very smooth.
Delightful. I never miss a ride on a stunt coaster.
That's funny because I feel like even when we go to Kings Island, and there was a window during the pandemic, we went to Kings Island a lot.
Yeah.
It was one of those rides we honestly kind of always rode. It was just
I never wanted to miss that.
No disappointment on Backlot Stunt Coaster for sure. Now, Backlot Stunt Coaster, as we kind of just giggled at, that's not really like a land it's part of. But it does.
It's very distinct.
It's practically like
it's like this little slice
Jungle
Expedition.
And Jungle Expedition is home to the newest Tambili, the rethemed Reptilian, and the classic Anaconda. We'll start with the Anaconda real quick.
Anaconda is it's not the best aero looper, and like back when all of the aero loopers were still open, people would shit on Anaconda so bad for like not being as ambitious or like not being as smooth or not aging as well. But look who's still here, bitches. It's still open because it was sturdier than a lot of the other ones that came before it. Like, I'm a little upset that like we lost Vortex and like some of these other aero loopers, but at least we have Anaconda, which is like beautiful, aesthetic. It was certainly unique relative to its contemporaries.
So Anaconda's layout is, like Alex mentioned, kind of unique, having a not super steep slope drop, underwater tunnel with a splash effect if it's working, vertical loop, sidewinder, and a straight into a mid-course brake run. Like, there was any time to get a train out onto the lift by then. I don't know why they built it. I really don't have any answers. And then it's that weird butterfly element, double corkscrew back to the station. Doesn't do a whole lot, but it is beautifully located on the lake or water, whatever you want to call that. The queue goes over the little water, when you hear all the frogs. It's kind of a cute vibe. I will say I do not love it as much as I used to. I was very disappointed on this trip. I was thinking, like, it's just not running that well. On our first trip to King's Dominion, oh my god, it was like my favorite thing. Now I actually prefer Loch Ness Monster over it. Don't hate me, everyone. I think most people actually agree. I used to be a Anaconda fan. I used to love it. Not anymore.
I love Anaconda, and I thought our rides on Anaconda were amazing. And I don't know what you're on, but like,
I know I have arrows tattooed on my body. Like, it's not like I don't love my aero coasters.
I'm very sad that your Anaconda rides. Like,
well, I think my Loch Ness
Monster
experience became better.
Loch Ness Monster was okay. I mean, I still like Anaconda better, but I don't know. I just thought Anaconda, for me, like, it was exactly what I remembered it being like, and I was so satisfied and so happy. But I also couldn't focus on it as much this time because I was enjoying Intimidator.
I will say it was cute to photograph. It's a really cute ride, honestly.
It's an enigmatic ride.
Also in the area is Tambili, which is the newest coaster, which is an SNS free spin.
The little one.
Love that ride, actually. Nice thing is it doesn't spin too much, which I enjoy because rides like Arashi scare me. Arashi with this crazy flipping, I guess I'm scared. I'm literally scared.
We went straight there to get the credit. I'm really glad we did because there's people that we know who waited like an hour to ride that.
Well, luckily, the line didn't seem too long all day, but it did get longer later in the day. Paint scheme on that ride, incredible.
So handsome.
So
that ride
beautiful.
has such a great presence, and it's so cute. And we rode it first thing, and I was like, oh my god, please don't be like a pain in the ass, like nauseating experience, because it was just like first thing, and I'm like, I didn't want to start it with like too much. It's like I wasn't awake yet. We made a flip once, and I was actually kind of grateful for that. I enjoyed
Did we
the fact.
just do one single flip, or no?
I don't even recall doing a flip.
Oh. Well, yeah, either way, it really wasn't that intense.
Maybe we did, but I was just relieved when I was like, oh, that was easy. Like,
and I wish more roller coasters would be painted using kind of like a thematic paint scheme, where in this case the supports look like giant bamboo shoots, and then the track is green. It worked so well, and I will say they really dressed up the area nicely. And for Trimbili, they rethemed the whole area. It's gorgeous. It's one of those like newer Cedar Fair projects that Great America has been so good at that I'm like, yeah, I'm really into it. It looks handsome. It's a great ride. Probably the most beautiful SNS free spin out there. It really looks so handsome. It's a cute ride, off ride as well. And then for the occasion, they rethemed Avalanche completely, which is the Meg bobsled coaster. One of the better ones, by the way. Now we've ridden a bunch, and I've gone back, because that was my first one. Now I've ridden a couple more, and now I'm like, yeah, this is actually really good.
It's in the upper echelon.
Yeah, because I prefer it over Rope Parks, for example.
Yeah.
I still may like Trace du Hurrah better, and I definitely like the Hyde Park one better. But it's still up there, because the nice thing
it's
about...
It's better than Blackpool's, and it's better than
Europa's. And the nice thing about Avalanches, or Reptilian, is that you have kind of a small first half, but then the second half, it's long, and it doesn't let up. Like, it just keeps going. It has that double helix figure 8 situation going on. Beautiful new color, beautiful trains, lots of new theming. Really happy with it.
Yeah, the longer, even though, like, the bobsled at Hyde Park and Park Asterix are incredible rides. In fact, I think I remember after riding after Reptilian, we were like, no, actually, maybe we do like that one better than Trace du Hurrah. I don't know, it's hard because they're very different. But like,
you know what? I think
Trace du Hurrah and to a lesser extent, the bobsled at Hyde Park are like constant brake run moments. Like Trace du Hurrah feels like it's just a bunch of like little ribbons of track connected by these giant brake run sequences, and it's still an amazing ride in its own right, but I love that Reptilian has one mid-course brake run. It doesn't feel like a disjointed, chopped-up ride experience that's more focused on running 5 trains at once than it is about, like, showing its riders a good time.
Because, Trace du Hurrah, because of all of its brake runs, it loses speed so quick. There's elements where I'm like, I'm not doing anything but just, like, rolling through this. But then on Hyde Parks, and definitely on Reptilian, you just go through these elements so quick. It like makes that bobsled coaster very thrilling and exciting. And I still remember kind of seeing sparks when I rode it at night in 2018. And I always remember, I'm like, oh my god, this thing sparks. Like, it's so crazy. Yeah. Great ride. Like, it's really underrated. And I think in my grand appreciation for that park altogether, it's probably in my top 3 at the whole park.
It's definitely an excellent ride. It's aging really well. It's finally getting the attention that it deserves. And of all the Mack bobsleds, it seems like the one that is the least brake run happy. Because, like, the one at Europa Park is great, but God, like, you hit that brake run, and then you do, like, a brake run tour of the entire ride. You, like, go through 4 different brake runs before you finally get to the station.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because if you look at all the elements in a row, the Europa Park one and Reptilian are actually one of the more... They're quite familiar, and they even kind of have the same... kind of like a boxy layout overall. Yeah. But then the Reptilian manages to somehow feel that much better than the Europa Park one. Yeah. It's pretty shocking.
And, but yeah, I think aside from just the constant brake runniness of a lot of them, even the one at Hyde Park, because it ends with a lift hill, it ends with like 3 brake runs and a lift hill. This is the one bobsled that doesn't feel like it's 50% brake run and lift hill. So it's really quite lovely, and the paint job is great, and I look forward. There's the big gaping maw left behind by Volcano but it's definitely only a matter of time before they strike with hopefully something really, really massive that will appropriately replace Volcano, the vacancy that it left. But yeah, now I think we've completed our jungle expedition, and now it's time for Special Corner.
So Special Corner, which is not the official name of the park.
It's just in the liner notes.
It's Special Corner. It's real special because it has Flight of Fear and like the best gig coaster ever created, Intimidator 305. Yeah. Don't at me. Let's start with Flight of Fear, because Flight of Fear is a cute look because it has a lot of good theming in the queue. Though I will say this Flight of Fear, the downside is that they have permanently put a maze in there that is only open during Halloween Haunt, which means that the queue itself, you can't really appreciate the giant mirror with the UFO that makes it look like a giant UFO standing there because you're so close to it at all times. All the original theming is turned on, and it is a vibe. The music is there. I just wish you could appreciate that room better because it's such a spectacular space. Yeah, definitely. The biggest difference between this one and the one at Kings Island, I think, is Kings Island is still pitch black, right? And this one, it's got ambient lighting. I think they both have ambient lighting.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, no, I can't remember. No, I think Kings Islands is still
pitch black,
dark and silent. Kings Dominions has some colored lights, just
and
a
it's
couple,
awesome sound.
And that great soundtrack.
The soundtrack makes me like this one so much because you ride it, and there's like this ambiance in that show building. So obviously the station's cool and you launch, and it's not a super intense launch, but it's cool.
I love being on the mid-course and admiring the ride around you.
Exactly, and then you launch into it, and there's this like a purple-yellow haze kind of around the show building, and you're meant to see the track, and I think they did that because it is an aggressive ride that's not very comfortable, and I'm sure people are smacking around like ragdolls in there, and so I think that they kind of want to help you anticipate the elements, because you can see everything you're doing in this black track. But I kind of like that about it. And then, like Alex said, you get to the mid-course brake run, and you just look around you, and you get to admire all of what the ride does. And this sound score is playing, this kind of like celestial score, as you make your way back all the way down to the final version. Yeah, great ride. I like all the Flight of Fears, indoor, outdoor, whatever. All of them are cool, but I think I like this one maybe even the best. Now I think about it.
I hope they do something like what Kings Island did, where they did like Sector 72 or whatever when they added Orion, they gave it like kind of an Area 51.
Yeah, I think it's Area 72.
Area 72, that's what it is. Intimidator 305 is perfect in every way except that the theme is weird. I don't have a problem with NASCAR. It's just that at this point in the game, like, I wish they would just let it go and give it a fucking celestial theme like Orion.
So I'm a little bit surprised that because Kings Island has always been very good about having space-themed or like government project-themed roller coasters in their little area back there.
Yeah,
because Firehawk was also like an Air Force themed, whatever
kind of thing.
And then now you have
Orion,
the space-themed roller coaster. This works, 2 space-themed rides. I feel like Intimidator 305 being a race car themed ride when it's also like a little, but it opened like the tallest ride in the world that wasn't the lift hill or whatever. I'm like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But now I especially feel that given racing is not really that cute of a theme anymore, no hate, but it's just like it's played out a little bit.
It was never particularly cute, but it was like culturally reverent being the.
And now the track is just fading so hard on I-305 that I feel like this is a great opportunity to just repaint the whole thing. Even like a black and silver, like something stark, something shocking. The red and yellow was really beautiful. I will not lie, it was striking for a tall ride. But maybe in a way, I kind of wish it was like a more of a stark, kind of like a dark coloration.
Yeah.
Even though I kind of am happy that those 90s black and gray scales are gone. That's one of the few rides. So I'm like, it would kind of work though in this kind of space. Like it's such an intense ride. It knocks you, most people gray out on it. It's not just any ride. It's I-305. That thing messes you up. It's intense. It's scary. Every time you go down a drop, you're like, why do I do it? Why do I do this? Like in a good way.
You know what I would love for them to do is retheme it, rename it, except instead of really renaming it, just rename it I-305.
Yeah, I-305 with a lowercase I.
Yeah, I-305. Because that's what everyone calls it anyway. And then I-305, instead of it being related to Intimidator, have it I-305 is like, secret government project missile thing or surveillance drone or something, and just call it I-305.
Yeah, I like that. Dark blue trains, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And a gray supports and black track, like you know what it's referencing, Express Platform 13.
Mm-hmm.
That color scheme, silver and blue or silver and red trains. I mean, bring it to me.
Not us armchair engineering. We just recorded the armchair engineering for
Universal
Studios Florida, and now I feel myself. But when I look at Intimidator, I feel like the ride's magnificence is a little bit squandered by the irreverence of the theme. I mean, it works for the South. Dale Earnhardt is great. Whatever. Sports is sports. It's fine. Cars are fast. It's whatever. But I just think at this point they could do something different. I think cohesion is something that matters more to Cedar Fair now than it has ever mattered. And King's Dominion is demonstrated that they are ready to flesh out the park in a thematic way. And they're very close to everything having a place and every place having its themes. It's just that the special corner and the Italian job that need to be addressed.
I will say on the topic of I-305 is that it's just in the grand scheme of roller coasters that we've ridden everywhere in the world. It's just up there. It's one of those rides where every single time I am on that lift hill, just racing up towards the sky, I'm like, this ride is insane. Like, why do I ask myself, why do I do this to myself? Because I love the ride, don't get me wrong. But it's just so intense that, I will gray out. The more I ride it, the more I'll gray out. And then I come out back to the station absolutely loving it. It's such a good ride. Probably my favorite Giga now, I would say.
I would probably rank it as my favorite. Steel Dragon 2000
is one of my favorite Intimates, period.
It's one that I love, but I think I'd have to give it to I-305.
It's kind of one of those rides, there's a reason there's one. People aren't just going to do this. It's kind of like Sky Rush. It's so niche. The line for I-305 is practically non-existent. I don't think I've ever been there where I had to wait in line for it. More than a couple trains, because you cannot put your grandma on that. You can't put your kid on it. You can only put healthy adults on it.
And a lot of people ride it. They ride it once and they're like, all right, I'm done with that.
And it's so intense, so good. And you hear people talk about how they completely blacked out. And I'm like, I gray out on that thing too. And I ride roller coasters every week. Love that ride though. It's so good.
Yeah.
Those transitions, the air, the blacking out, everything.
I think it's appreciated in value very quickly. Because when it first
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that it's because I think when you build something like that, it was such a hit, you think there's going to be other parks that do this. Now it's become abundantly clear that other parks are not doing this. Intimate is not building. They have not built another ride of this style.
Yeah.
Sky Rush is just as intense, but it's a very
a mini
different
version of
kind
it, but
of
you
ride.
see the same kind of lift hill system.
Yeah. So Intimidator really is truly one of a kind, which is something that I appreciate so much more on this visit than I did in 2018. 2018, it was the hype, it was the focus, it was, everybody loves it. But for me, I was like, well, is it going to always be this special, or is it just a stepping stone in the natural progression of Giga coasters? And really, it wasn't.
I think in 2018 that was already becoming very clear, because that's 8 years after a ride like that launches, and I feel generally speaking, when a ride comes out that is successful, manageable.
Yeah, it doesn't take 8 years.
That's by then you're going to see rides following it pretty quick. And I think the issue that they had with having to reconstruct part of the ride because it was so intense that it was less intense, adding brakes, all that kind of stuff. I think that was enough indication that this product line maybe wasn't what it was going to be. I think they contracted Sky Rush around that time, and that because it's so similar in many ways. When you think about it, it's very similar. It just uses different trains and perhaps different skill. I think it became very clear very quick that product line was just too much. And they've obviously been really successful with all their new Intimates. And the first episode of the season discusses 4 of the brand new mega launchers that they've done. So clearly it went somewhere because the track type survived, the support style survived, the train survived. All that survived. It's just that the grandness and the craziness has been turned into maybe a variety of different elements that are not quite as killing,
Yeah. I would say that Intamin has improved their ability to give their clients what their audience wants, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because I-305 is just so niche. Skyrush is incredibly niche. These parks want rides that are more approachable and re-rideable. Things that not rides that are going to overwhelm people and leave them, sitting on a bench for half an hour. So it's like, I get it, but and you're right. Like when we first wrote it, like it was probably already abundantly clear that another ride like that wasn't going to be built, but I just couldn't appreciate it for enough until I think this time around I was like, no, this really is something very special.
But I think there is just times they just stumble upon a ride and you're like, there's a reason they don't build them like this anymore, and this is just one of those rides. It's just a one-off, and I love it, and I hope it never goes anywhere, and that's my number one ride at that park. And I guess on that topic, I'm just going to give my top 3 real quick. I think realistically my top 3 currently is Intimidator, Dominator, and Reptilian. It's just each are really like good in their own class. They are really powerful rides in the lineup, and they're honestly quite unique in the American coaster scheme, because even though we've got floorless coasters at every damn Six Flags park, you can't avoid them. This is just such a unique floorless coaster, and then obviously the bobsled coaster like that, we only have one in North America. The other ones are the old Intamin ones. And then there's nothing like R305 in the world. Yeah. So those 3 are just Kings and Minions power trio, in my opinion. And I know many people would include Twisted Timbers in that, but I'm just not that big of an RMC.
For me, my top 5, I guess, would include those, and would also include Anaconda
and Grizzly.
Maybe Grizzly. Or maybe Flight of Fear.
Flight of Fear is also so very good.
Hard to choose.
My top 5 would then include Flight of Fear and
not Anaconda, because you're breaking my heart.
I could probably say Anaconda.
Okay, I was like, it better be in your top
Anaconda.
5. Please, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could agree on a top 5 in some capacity. I don't know if they'd be in the same order. We can agree that I-305 is our favorite. It's
number 1. So let's rank it. Let's rank the park itself in the grand scheme of Cedar Fair parks then. Because I already kind of mentioned early in the episode that I think that the Paramount parks are the best Cedar Fair parks. Sorry, Cedar Point lovers. I think Cedar Point's lineup is cute, but the park itself lacks any sort of soul.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't suck a soul out of it because it doesn't have one.
And we love Knott's Berry Farm, and we will defend Knott's Berry Farm, but Knott's Berry Farm
is a really well-rounded park. I think, objectively speaking, let's be very honest, I still think Knott's Berry Farm is Cedar Fair's best park. But with currently Accelerator being down for 2 years, you've got Monzuma's Revenge that's down.
They're just very in flux right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one who's lost their patience with the Accelerator situation, so I'm not quite as quick to declare Knott's as my fave. It's sort of just on standby right now. We really haven't been in a while. So
I guess there's not much to track to me. Yeah, I will say between the theming of the dark rides and the Rapids ride and the Loch Flume, Knott's Berry Farm is still the best. I think the best park objectively, best rounded. It competes with Disneyland.
Yeah, it's definitely exists in a different universe than the other ones.
You have your Cedar Fair categories. In my opinion, you have Knott's Berry Farm is kind of the top tier category. You've got your Paramount parks, and then you've got your Cedar Fair loves you more than the bottom parks. Old Cedar Fair parks, and you've got the bottom set. But having said that, objectively, I think it may be second or third in the chain. Perhaps with below Kings Island, because I still believe that Kings Island's lineup may be a little bit better. Between having Bats in the woods, and you've got Banshee's a great invert, you have Beast and Adventure Express in the woods. I just think that overall, perhaps the lineup is better. But that's a maybe. It's in the top 3 for me anyway. I think Kings Island, Kings Dominion, and Knott's our top 3, and then Cedar Point.
Yeah, those are the top 3 for me too. Kings Dominion really, really wowed me this time.
We had such a great day.
To the point where it was really obvious to me that it was my favorite collection of coasters at any Cedar Fair park. And I'm so used to Kings Island being my favorite, but I have to remind myself that Vortex is gone. It is not there anymore. Vortex was my favorite coaster there. It is gone. I've been there. We've been there since it was demolished, and I still struggle to recall that. And also Firehawk is gone, and we love Firehawk.
Yeah, true.
And now
they get a Giga in place.
They have Orion, which is it's not.
We don't hate it. Remember, we bought a bunch of merch for it.
I like Orion, but it's not. No, I would trade it back for Vortex. So
I would trade it back for Firehawk, and
I would trade it back for a lot of things.
I didn't say that on record.
But so for me, King's Dominion just took me out this time. Like, I was so impressed with their lineup this time that it was, like, without a shadow of a doubt, my preferred park over Kings Island.
Okay,
in this go, because Kings Island just doesn't do a whole lot for me right now with their new coasters. I guess Kings Dominion doesn't either, because Tumbili and Twisted Timbers are not exactly, like, my cup of tea either. But Kings Island, for me, now is missing, like, a clearer object of my affection without Vortex.
I will say that now it's kind of awkward because I feel like it's missing a straight-up looper. Like, yeah. I know that they have Banshee at Kings Island, but it's, an invert. I still feel like it's a regular sit-down looper. Yeah. It's kind of lacking now.
They've got Flight of Fear, but it's a launch coaster.
But fingers crossed that maybe it'll get a big Vekoma looper.
Kings Dominion has got the straight-up looper game down. They've got Dominator, they've got Vortex, they've Twisted Timbers.
Yeah.
They've got Flight of Fear. They've got 4 excellent looping coasters that don't rely on gimmicks. They just have great ride layouts and do some interesting things. And they're missing an invert. Kings Island's got not 1, but 2 great inverts.
Yeah.
So they have their strengths.
Yeah, because Volcano checked that box for sure. Yeah. It was gimmicky, but it was definitely a cool launcher, and it was a cool invert. So I want to discuss some big weaknesses, and then we'll finish up with the biggest strengths of Kings Dominion. I think for me, the weaknesses include, there are some areas where I'm like, you couldn't be less inspired to theme this if you tried. There's a giant plaza that's technically part of Candy Apple Grove that used to house Supersonic XLC.
Yeah.
That's kind of like this giant asphalt pad, and I'm like, the surface of the sun has visited us because I'm dying over there. So and it wasn't even that hot out.
If you can imagine it, it was worse. It used to be worse. They planted trees there where the supports had been for the
XLC.
Tower. Yeah.
And then I found that their tower ride's not operating, being a little bit annoying. I'm like, okay, 1, I understand. 2 is like not cute, but all 3, that's too much for me. I think that's my biggest criticism of the park. I will say that the walkway from International Street past Dominator to the Picnic Grove and Boo Hill is kind of uninspired, but it's not terrible. It's not a long walk. Get a nice view of Dominator. Dominator is a very basic ride on the field. Definitely felt that they could put it there after Jaga Lake to have something to compete with Busch Gardens.
Classic Dick Kinzel.
They had some space for it. Very Cedar Ferry, as in like, it's kind of like a Cedar Point vibe, where like switchbacks, minimal grass, and a big steel roller coaster. Yeah, it's very old Cedar Fair. Like that's what I mean when I say like that tier of like
Dorney.
Below Paramount Parks, where it's Cedar Point and the other big boys.
Yeah.
And then below that, you have the ones nobody cared about anymore.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe that ride's giving. It's very much like a timestamp, like a boop, Cedar Fair arrives timestamp.
It's giving Michigan's Adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, even given its size and its look, almost like a Cedar Point vibe. Like it's very, very matter of fact, very straightforward, but it lacks kind of like an identity. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Totally.
That's the biggest weaknesses, I think, for me.
For me, the park just has a disjointedness with like some of the lingering Paramount. Paramount, Paramount like really threw caution to the wind when it came to the identities of the areas of the parks, and then like whatever franchise they were trying to promote. When it was Outer Limits, they're like, we're putting a space themed roller coaster here. We don't care if it's related to the theme or not. And Cedar Fair did nothing to like challenge that for quite some time, because Intimidator was, all Cedar Fair, and it was definitely a Paramount level disregard, a Premier Parks, Six Flags era disregard for a themed area and the rides that they were putting in it. So I think Kings Dominion's in great shape, and their trajectory is awesome. Basically, they need to just keep doing what they're doing, and as long as they do that, I think a lot of their weaknesses, at least that are an issue for me, my issues with the park, what I think are the weaknesses, are going to take care of themselves. And then, aside from what you've already covered, now they just need an invert again.
Yeah.
An invert, or I would sell for a wing coaster.
Oh my god, we would love a wing coaster. But that's that weird Not that weird proposed one though. If I want a wing coaster,
not a shitty wing coaster.
I want like a big. The hot go model, like in its full shape.
Get
please.
me a launched B&M wing coaster. Get me a Thunderbird, but like a different layout, longer maybe, and with a wavy launch like pipeline. Now I'm just asking for random shit, but like I would like.
Dear Santa Claus.
Yeah, give me something that's a cross between pipeline and Thunderbird, maybe a little longer, and we're in business.
Biggest strengths for me at the park, I will say, I think the lineup is very well rounded.
Yeah.
I think they have, besides an invert, which you already mentioned like 10 times now, it's just well balanced. You got your launch coasters, you got your inverters, you have your
Woodies.
Super intense Woodies, you've got family friendly roller coasters, you have rides that are so intense you really wonder who approved that. A lot of balance. It's kind of nice. And the park has enough spread out throughout that it doesn't feel like one side of the park is better than the other. Though I will say that all things considered, the left side of the park is stronger between Dominator and I threw a 5 Flight of Fours. Like all those.
There is a density of roller coasters.
Yeah, it's a lot in one
crazy.
spot. Yeah,
there is when Volcano was still open, you had, aside from the Scrambler, you had 6 major roller coasters in a row. Like, you had the bobsled, you had Volcano, you had Flight of Fear, you had Intimidator, you had Anaconda, you had Backlash Sun Coaster, with nothing between them except a Scrambler. Which, in my mind, I'm like, this is my dream. This is like Roller Coaster Tycoon, where you just build nothing but roller coasters in your perfect dream park. In reality, it makes a little more sense for it to be diversified beyond just roller coasters after roller coasters after roller coasters. But when we were there, I was really basking in it. I loved getting my locker at Flight of Fear and being able to hit like 7 roller coasters within a reasonable walking distance. And if it works for King's Dominion, great. It works for me too. So I look forward to them keeping that up and bringing the Jungle Expedition into its second phase of development. Hopefully bringing another coaster and hopefully a flat ride too, I think would be nice.
Well, they have that one flat ride.
What about the Scrambler?
Yeah, is that the spider themed one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Arachnidia.
Another big focus for biggest strength is that the park's very clean. Staff's very nice. Operations were pretty decent. Weren't amazing, but they were decent. But biggest thing is just like a clean experience. And that, if I was thought that was the case with both Kings Island, Kings Dominion, California, Great America, you just walk in there, it looks maintained, looks clean, looks large, but has a purpose. Even, like every space is used, not a whole lot of abandoned stuff, and especially criticizing here on Six Flags parks, speaking, there's just so much that I'm like, this hasn't been maintained or it isn't in use anymore. They find some use for everything at King's Dominion, even if it means another gift store with the same stuff. At least it seems functional. It's open. There's someone staffed inside of it. Build-A-Bear, Starbucks, whatever they got to do with it. It works. I like the park. It's clean. It's pleasant to walk around. Is it a super joyful park to walk around? It's still a little concretey. It's still a Cedar Fair park.
Yeah.
But it's a really pretty one at that. And I think with that, I got my biggest strengths out of the way. Do you have any strengths to add?
No, I think you've covered it.
Well, with that, we're going to wrap up this Inside King's Dominion episode. We'll see you next week on our next episode. Mm-hmm. We've got lots coming with the season. I think we have a list of like 20-plus topics already. So keep you busy every week. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, we do ask you to leave a review. It would tremendously help us out. 5 stars preferably, if you love us. If not, you did not listen to Coast to Kings Radio. Yeah. This was some other podcast.
If not 5 stars, please send me an email.
Yeah, please kindly message us on social media, which you can do on Threads, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, or just simply an email at info@thecoastkings.com. Don't forget to check out our website with new updates, articles, all the good stuff on thecoastkings.com. And we'll catch you next week. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.